All right, thank you. So, welcome to the February 1st meeting of the Durham Planning Board. And this evening, our first step would be a roll call and determination of a quorum. We do not have a quorum this evening. Ms. Kaplinger and myself, John Talbot, are here. So we will not be able to do any official business or take any votes. So our agenda will be limited today to reviewing future meetings for the review and hearings on the land use ordinances that will be voted on the 1st of April at the town hall meeting. So with that, we will skip over to amendments to the agenda. We cannot do the acceptance of the minutes from the last meeting. We can do, I think, informational exchange with Mr. DeBarge. So George, do you have any information?
Yeah, one update is that, as you know, the town has been doing a process to digitize the tax maps. Up until last year, the town had been getting paper copies manually drawn of all tax changes of properties, addition of new subdivisions to the tax base. And O'Donnell Associates, the company that had done that for years and years and years, notified Durham as well as several other towns in southern Maine that are still using paper maps for the drafting process, that indicating that they would no longer be doing it. And no other company does it manually anymore. Everybody's on computers. So we ended up using some ARPA funds to get the digitized tax maps. Spatial Alternatives in Yarmouth was able to take all of the paper maps, digitize them, and create a GIS base for the tax parcels. And that information is going to be tied to the assessing database and will be posted on the town's website under other services, online services, so that anyone can check the property records, tax assessment for their property over the internet. And that's really important because real estate professionals that are working with property owners and potential purchasers, they really have to come to town hall to get that information. And so it'll be a big time saver for the public as well as the staff of town hall once that information is made available online. So it's all been set up, it's been tested, and I just asked the consultant to send the links to set it up on the town website to the IT staff. And so hopefully within the next few days, that'll be up and running and live. So that was my update.
Thank you. Question for you on that. If there is an error, like when I did the beta testing,
right,
there was an error
Yep.
on mine.
What you and anyone else should do is let us know if there's an error, and we will work with the consultants to address any errors that come up.
So email the town planner?
Yep.
Super. Okay, I'll get you one.
Okay.
But it was an excellent, for the public, it's an excellent thing, and there's great information on there, and there's maybe a bug or two. So just get a hold of town planner, and if you have a bug in yours, please get a hold of him. And then anything else?
Nope.
The only other thing I have is that the budget process is going forward. The budget committee will meet on Thursday to review the planning budget for next year. I think it'll be very similar to what we've had this year. And so hopefully there's plenty to keep us busy, and the money will be there to do it. Juliet, did you have any general comments?
No.
Then continuing on, Pat, there are no residents or non-residents. So continuing business was supposed to have been a completeness review of the Deer Creek subdivision. And since we do not have a quorum, we cannot do that this evening. And so that will move back to our March meeting. They are also still just assembling some of the information to complete their packet. And with that, I think we are now on talking about the schedule for future meetings on land use ordinances. And we've been asked by the chairman of the select board to add an additional hearing meeting on the land use ordinances so that the citizens and public can comment on the draft articles that will be voted on at the town hall meeting on the 1st of April. Those articles are posted on the town website, so for everyone to look at before the next meeting that we have and comment. And you're always welcome to send to the town planner your comments if you can't make the meeting or in advance of that. And the other point I would make, and our town planner has done a lot of hard work on answering questions about specific parcels. So if there's anybody out there that wants to know the impact on their parcel, again, contact the town planner, and he will let you know what impact, if any, is on that. So we have a draft schedule of events, and as I said, been asked to add an additional public hearing meeting to go over the draft articles. And so the timeline, we work against the end date of the town hall on the 1st of April. And so we've got to get the final article ready for the vote on that day. And so the dates that we're going to discuss this evening are really, I wouldn't say they're drop dead, but they're important dates there's not a lot of wiggle room to change them. So I will start out with Mr. Thabart. You want to cover the email you received from the state on affordable housing?
Yeah, we have really two timelines to discuss. The general timeline that you explained, John, would be relating to the sequence of getting the official public hearing for any land use ordinance or other amendments that are going to be considered at the town meeting. And that public hearing must be held no less than 7 days before the town meeting and no more than 30 days before the town meeting. So that puts it sometime within the month of March. So we had discussed doing it in earlier March. The 8th was the target date that we have selected. But as you indicated, the select board has asked the planning board to consider doing 2 public hearings. The first one being an opportunity to put comment into the drafts, and then the planning board can consider changes and, if any, make them. That'll give us time to make them. So the 2 dates that you posed, John, and Kevin Nadeau, were the 15th of February for the first public hearing, and then the 15th of March for the second public hearing. We've had some discussion just before the meeting about a potential conflict with the Conservation Commission meeting on the 15th. So we're now going to be discussing the possibility of holding the public hearing, the second public hearing on March 16th instead of the 15th, which will still be within that 30 to 7 day window. So that's one timeline. The second timeline is that one part of the amendments dealing with the new affordable housing law, which was designated as Public Law 2003, which was passed last April, which we've been preparing to respond to. It goes into effect on July 1st of 2023. And the Department of Economic and Community Development has been charged by the legislature to develop rules for interpretation, application, and enforcement of that new law. And I have been in contact with Hillary Gove of the Department of Economic and Community Development, DECD, and she gave me a specific timeline for their process of rulemaking. And that is, they are going to publish the rules, the draft rules for LD 2003 on February 8th, which I believe is next Wednesday. And then they are going to hold a public hearing on the draft rules on March 1st. And then they're going to hold open a public comment period on the draft rules for implementation of the affordable housing law until March 13th. And then they expect to complete the rule-making process by mid to late April, which will be after the town meeting of Durham and many other, I'm not sure if any other towns are doing some have it in March even. So there will be a problem in terms of the final official rules, but there will be a draft. and there will be the input of the public hearing on those draft rules at Augusta that will give us a pretty good indication of how the draft amendments that we've come up with, which were an attempt first to implement the recommendations of Durham's comprehensive plan, which had those recommendations before that law ever went into effect, which are very much in line with what the new law is proposing. So that rulemaking process will give the process that's been completed by them to this point, that's going to be published next week, will give us a pretty good indication of how that draft that we came up with aligns with the new law implementation rules. So we have that timeline to work with as well. So by the time there is the first public hearing on the land use ordinance amendments that we're proposing, we'll have time to do an analysis of the new rules, draft rules, up against what we've come up with so far.
Okay, so just recap, you said February 8th is the first?
February 8th is the
They'll have
publication of their draft rules.
Okay, and then we're planning our first hearing the 15th, although I'd like to propose maybe the 16th.
Mhm.
Is that okay?
That's what we discussed, yeah.
Oh,
That
well,
was
no,
March.
March, but I just looked at my calendar. I'm not able to make, I could probably make the 15th. The 16th would be much better. That's a Thursday. There's nothing on the Durham,
You've already looked at Durham.
yeah, there's nothing on 15th, 16th, 17th. The Selectmen meeting on the 14th.
I don't
But
know.
Wednesday nights are, aside from this night, is tricky. You got something on the 16th?
Well, I can't ask yeah, I don't know. So I'm good. One more day doesn't.
The
make or
issue will
break.
be whether other planning board members can make those.
Oh, because you sent the thing out.
I did, but I think
Did you
we,
get any responses?
I got none.
Besides mine?
You know, other than yours. So I think what the result, when we're all said and done on this, I think what I would say is I will send it out and say, look,
We
two
need-
changes to what I sent you before. If we agree, February 16th for the additional hearing, the next hearing, and then March 16th for the final public hearing on the final articles. So I'm good. I don't, having gotten up.
One suggestion would be to send out an email to the full planning board indicating the dates that have been discussed are February 15th and March 15th. However, there are conflicts on the 16th, and one planning board member.
You know what, I'm sorry, let's not, I don't want to confuse it. Let's leave February 15th.
Does that work for
That's
you?
fine.
Okay.
I can make it work.
Because I
It's fine.
would have done it slightly
No, yeah,
different
you're
than what George is
I
recommending.
was just going to
which
suggest
It's
saying
fine.
which of these dates can you make?
I
No, it's fine.
I think
Let's
we just
leave it-
pick a date and I'm,
February 15th is fine. I can make that work.
And move the 16th
And move the
because of the
16th, just do
Conservation
it.
Commission meeting.
okay.
Okay.
So then I guess, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just putting it in my calendar.
No,
What
right.
time you want to,
6:30, let's see, we've got three, I guess that is a point. There are three land use articles that are being considered. Well,
say 6?
One is the affordable housing and one is the, I'm just going public. Affordable housing, one is resource protection, and the third one is changing the ordinance on
Street acceptance.
streets, private roads, a minor tweak of that ordinance. So yes, so I would say 6 if just because we've got, I don't know how many people are going to come, but that would give us.
We will
plenty
be
of time.
sending out for the official public hearing, 480 plus or minus individual landowner notices. So as we saw in the fall when we send out postcards, this time we will have a full letter as indicated in the statutes, as well as a map. So that should generate some additional
For
attendance.
for the February 15th?
No, for
Okay.
the official public
So
hearing.
we'll just talk about it on our social media about February 15th,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Well, we have to post it too, right? There has to
Yes,
be a
yes.
Yeah.
Newspaper notice.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
want to have it here, Eureka probably, right?
Yes.
Yeah, George, if we can get the Eureka.
And we have checked, Jessica, the town clerk, has actually already reserved the Eureka Center for both February 15th and March 15th, but I will need to check with her on the availability on March 16th.
Yep, and we have time to tweak the March meeting, we can do that at the February 15th meeting, so there's time on that.
Yep.
So, because the 15th is the big one, because that's 2 weeks.
Do you want to kind of pencil in March 16th?
I think we
though,
do
for
that,
right now?
absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if for some reason the world ends and we can't, I mean, we use the firehouse, that worked well.
Yep,
It's
that's another
not,
option.
it's not a heck of a lot smaller than the other one. So I think there are opportunities out there to, if we can't get the Eureka Center, we can get the other one.
Okay, and same specs were Eureka, we're going to try for and starting at 6 on March 16th.
Does that, I know that causes problems for some of our members because it's early. We can either, for discussion, we can start at 6 or we start at 6:30, but just plan to go maybe to 9. I mean, it may, we would just add that half hour.
6:30 instead.
And then if we can finish by 8:30, we're good. If not, we can go to 9. We do have to pretty much do all 3. I mean, roads, I would hope, is not going to generate a lot of discussion, and people have had an opportunity to discuss the other 2 on multiple times. So as we're looking at this on the 8th of February, George, you'll get the draft state comments. We'll do a quick review, and I and Julius welcome others join in and say, hey, that looks close to what we've got. We'll be prepared to announce, say we're doing that process. So 2:15 at 6:30 at the Eureka Center. And will be the next first public hearing. And then not to be official, but then George, we have to come out of that meeting and tweak whatever, if there are any changes, because on the 22nd of February, George will send out, the town will send out a mailing to all the landowners who were impacted by resource protection changes. So that gives the town staff some time to print it, stuff it, mail it. So that will be that. On the February 28th, the next date that's out there for us is the selectmen will approve the final articles. And so the email that came from chairman of the selectmen said they will just either vote to approve to put them on the town hall agenda or not, in which if they vote not, then it won't be on the agenda and the process for that article would stop. So 2/28, there's plenty of time to prep for that. And then after that, when the final articles are approved, the George and the town staff will get them on the web as soon as possible. And we're looking at March 16th, and I think the same timeline, 6:30 to, we'll just got to announce 9. I mean, 2.5 hours should be enough time to, particularly the second one. That horse will have been pretty well beaten and meat taken off of it. So that's our schedule coming up, 2:15, 6:30, Eureka, 3 March 16th, 6:30, Eureka would be the final one. And after that, there's really no room to make correct typos and spelling, but other than that, there's no chance to really tweak them. So that is truly the final one.
Can we go through the schedule again really quick?
Sure.
So I'm looking at the email Kevin sent out. So we're going to have February 15th, the hearing, public comment, right? If there's any changes that we want to make based on that, we
Yes.
make those
Yes.
like within a week.
Well, we have a week, and so we will vote on, and correct me if I'm wrong, but at the end of the public hearing, we'll vote on how we want to move forward on.
I thought we were voting the next hearing, like,
Well, I think what John is alluding to is, and part of the purpose of having the 2 public hearings is so that you can make changes. And so I think what John is pointing to, let's just say you have input at the February 15th public hearing that indicates the plan, and we will have had time to review and that was the other thing I wanted to mention. I will put on the agenda for the March 1st planning board meeting, the review of the DECD draft rule.
But
So
we will
we can have a discussion of that. So let's just say that rule says, well, look, that really isn't going to work, what we've drafted, or you need to consider this part of it. Then we could propose some changes as a result of the DCD rules and/or input from the February 15th public hearing, draft some changes and have those ready for the public hearing on March 15th.
Yeah,
Yes, but, that's what I was thinking, but based on Kevin's proposal is that he wants to vote on the February 28th.
yes, I think that backing up, I think we need to, on the 8th, we'll get, and everybody who wants to can review that, but we need to take a quick look and say, we're
Oh,
in
yes,
line.
yes. I was thinking on the 15th, at the end of that meeting,
Okay,
you would take the public
of
comment.
February.
Yes, have had the review of the DECD rules on the affordable housing part of it. And then at the conclusion of the public hearing on the 15th, you would propose whether you want to make any changes or not.
Okay. So
And
we
so
would know.
then if you do, what we can do is have a bulleted list and have you approve that list of changes. And then I can do the drafting for it. This is February 15th. They're going to be meeting and approving the final language, the final warrant article language on the 28th. And so we would need to have whatever draft we're going to redo, if any, ready to get to the select board before the 28th meeting.
So
Okay.
I think we're in
Okay.
sync with
It's a
that.
tight
Okay,
schedule.
but no, I getting the public, like, if that meeting's gonna be kind of, we're listening and then potentially
I think, yeah, we'll
revising
vote. I
during
mean, I
that
think
and voting.
we'll close the public hearing, have a discussion amongst the board members, and then vote to say, I don't want to, if I come up with something, somebody in the audience to say, oh,
Mhm.
they're going to change this. So, but yes, we will combine the state input on the 8th, the public input on the 15th, and before we leave here on the 15th, come up with
So just,
if any
yeah, and
changes.
just to give a historical example, last year, we were considering a proposal to change the policy for the adoption of public road, approval of private roads as private ways. And at the public hearing, there was discussion and debate over whether such roads at outside of subdivisions needed to be paved or could be gravel.
Mhm.
And so the input from that meeting led the select board to consider making a change to pretty much allow the gravel or setting a policy. It was actually the current policy, but there had been a discussion of changing it to paving. And then they finally concluded, let's just leave it as gravel.
But-
And that went to town meeting and everybody was arguing about the process. And I think that's what Chairman Neto is trying to avoid, is we get to the town meeting and have people argue about the process. This gives an opportunity to make changes before the select board makes their decision on the warrant articles. And then it goes to the town meeting with hopefully everybody satisfied with at least
I
the
don't have
process.
any other, there's a huge difference this year in that last year was a one meeting affair.
Yes,
So
but
we've
but
got,
that's why we're going to the two meetings.
I got you. But it was a one meeting total. There was,
Yeah.
those came out of.
Yes, but the point is that this would be an example of where a change could be made. That one change was made, and that change could be made as a result of the February 15th public hearing, and then put the final language, which didn't go back out to another public hearing for the March 15th, and then say, this is it.
Yeah, at that point, by March 15th.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think, does that sound like a plan?
Yeah,
And again, just to clarify my sense
Mhm.
of so the first public hearing is to give opportunity to say, look, this is the final draft. If we're going to make changes, they got to be considered now. The second public hearing will occur after the select board has approved them. And the purpose of that meeting will be to give an opportunity for everyone to see it, hear it, understand it before the town meeting vote. So that you don't go to the town meeting and say, I don't understand this, please explain it to me. There will still be some of that,
Mhm.
but at least there will have been the opportunity for everybody to hear the full presentation a few weeks before it goes to the town meeting.
so I like that. The one thing I'm thinking of is if anything does come up that's substantial on February 15th and only you and I are there.
I don't think we can be. I mean, I think at that
You
point,
need a
we've got
quorum.
to
You
get,
need a quorum.
Yeah.
we've got to get people.
Okay, and then also I'm wondering about select board. I know Kevin had some good comments the last one we had, which is why we're here, actually. At the last meeting
Yeah.
the public meeting we had. Like, I wonder,
We'll invite them, even to come to
Yeah.
the 15th.
yeah, and like, I don't know if that's allowed.
Oh, yeah,
per town
no.
law, like,
Well,
for-
the select board have been
They're-
attending.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if they have comments.
Multiple members have been
they can-
attending these meetings.
People
So
just, that's their time to express
No,
their.
I agree. It's because coming out of the 15th, what they see on the 28th from their, the way he has said in his emails, it's not our role to tweak it or to change it. Our role is either accept what you provided us or reject it and not put it before that. So I think they've seen the draft ones in the past, so I don't think this will be cold. And some selectmen, when we did it back in October, we had at least two selectmen. When we started affordable housing at the Conservation Commission, I know there was at least one, Kevin, I can't remember if there were more at that one or not. So yes, they have that opportunity to weigh in, and they've had that.
and John presented the final draft, your final draft, on January 12th. So they've had it for a few
Yeah.
weeks now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I hear that loud and clear that, Kevin, he says that, it's, in his view, it's not appropriate for the select board to directly amend language. Decision will be based on whether we think the ordinance is ready to be voted on or not.
yeah, and they'll be invited, and I will go back to the selectmen next week, I guess.
28th?
Well, the 28th is their final vote, but I will go back, what is the second Tuesday? So the 14th, I'll go to their meeting and say, look, I'll lay out this timeline for them, is what I'm
Oh,
going
yeah,
to say. And I will also, George, probably at that point say, we received the state comments and we think we're in line or we're not, and on affordable housing. That has no impact on resources or private roads. So.
Well, on that, so, yeah, we'll have an idea from the draft. If by any chance, which hopefully there isn't much, there is something drastically that changes after our meeting, the April 1st meeting, what's our plan there? Like, will we have any sort of like caveat? Like, what if we're not in,
If we're
what
talking,
if it's crazy? What if we're not in alignment?
oh, I
with
think
what
that's
the
a good question. I think at that point.
Well, I think it's important to remember, the law is the law.
Right, I know.
They
I'm
can't, they can't change the law. All they can do is give greater
that.
clarity on how towns must implement those requirements. They can't change those requirements. And those requirements say any individual lot that has an existing single-family home or a duplex, which Durham allows, must allow up to 3 units of housing on that property. Any vacant land, every Maine municipality must allow at least 2 dwelling units on that vacant piece of property if you allow a single-family home on that property. That can't change without an act of the legislature. What the DECD can do is to say, this is how it must be applied by the towns. So we've had discussions, and the current proposal is to say, if you have a single-family home, you'll be allowed to have 2 accessory units rather than just one that you can have now. And if you have a duplex, currently Durham does not allow you to have an accessory apartment with the two full-size units. This amendment would allow an accessory apartment with a duplex for a total of 3 in either case. So what we'll be able to tell, I mean, that meets the technical general requirement of the law, but they may look at, can you restrict the size of these units and provide some rules consistent based on the Attorney General's input, who's been reviewing this, to give parameters on that decision-making. And ultimately, I'm sure what they will focus on is they want to make sure that the rules that the towns adopt don't undermine the intent of the law. And so they're going to try to put parameters on it to make sure that the legislation is complied with, but give more specificity because there's so many questions. Well, what does that mean? How do you do it?
But I think, if I understood your question, So what you're asking is if town approves it on April 1st, it becomes the ordinance, and they just come out, I'm pulling stuff out of my hair, but they say you must allow 10
Yeah,
10 units per.
But again, they can't change the law.
No, but the law, they could,
something that would make what we voted on just not.
Well, I think here's an example. They say, this means you can put a triplex, 3 attached units. We say you can only have a duplex and an accessory apartment. You can't build 3 equal
Right,
units.
That's a good example.
That would be an example of where, I don't think that's going to come out of it,
We don't-
but it could. And then we'd have to say, well, wait a minute. And the bottom line is the town attorney has told the code officer that you have to follow the state law.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say, is that,
So if they adopt those rules, whether it's in our ordinance or not, he still has to do
We'll
it.
just have to revise it later.
Yeah,
After
we'll have to revise it.
on the 2nd of July, somebody comes in and says,
Yeah.
I want a quad, or I want a triplex. The code officer would have, if, assuming they've done that, would have to allow that. And then next year, we just have to go back and,
Revise the- Okay, well, it's not
change
that big of a deal. It's not, I mean, it's not like you said, it's not gonna be apples to bananas. It'll be maybe
Exactly.
apples to.
It'll be Macintosh to Cortland's.
Yeah, possibly, right.
and so, yeah, so hopefully, and we'll know, I mean, if there's some bizarre interpretation where they come back and say, you have to allow, on the 8th of February.
We'll know better next
Yeah.
Wednesday.
So I think that's.
And then we'll have a discussion of it on March 1st.
But
No,
we'll also talk about it on the 15th.
yeah, we have to have the discussion on the 15th.
Yes.
If there's anything, like if anything changes with what we are proposing.
Yeah, well, I think we need to be able to, my thought would be, and this is a perfect world, because we get it on the 8th, we all look at it and say, I don't see any changes here. We can tell the public that, look at, we've compared this to the draft state rules and we're very much in sync with them. Or if, I don't know, but I don't know that a discussion on the 1st serves us much.
So I
Good.
think I was mixing up the meetings. So we get the DECD rules on February 8th. We have the public hearing on February 15th. At that point, we still have the March 1st meeting to take the public input.
No.
And-
We have the
Selectmen are
planning
voting,
board.
no, because selectmen are voting on the final
28th,
article
on the 28th. So we don't have
We
to
don't
March
have,
1st.
we have to come out of the 15th
with,
with the final draft.
okay,
So,
But I'm sorry, you were going DC or what, DDC? They come out-
DECD.
Yes, they come out on the 8th. And
8th.
what's the next date after that for them?
Well, for them, it's March 1st, they have a public hearing, which will be
Okay.
the date that we're talking about doing.
Great. So they
the
have a
regular
public
planning board
hearing,
meeting.
But then they come
So
up.
yeah, you really have to make the decision on any changes on the
on the
15th.
15th. So 2 weeks.
Yep, so that we can get it to the select board by the 20.
So if
for
you'll
the-
get it
for
to
their
me
meeting of the
and I
28th.
will follow up with another email.
So what
saying,
we'll do, you decide if you want to make changes, tell me what they are. I will draft it, circulate it to the planning board. You can email back comments. And then we'll just send it on with that recommendation for these changes, because they've already got the drafts. So really, it's just send them a copy of the changes that come out of the public hearing,
Possible changes.
as opposed to rewrite the whole thing. It'll be make this change to this part, and this part.
Yeah, then you do that on the,
Yeah, and then we,
16th or-
then I repackage the whole thing for posting for the
Yeah.
public, for the official public hearing on the 16th.
Oh, wow.
of
You're going
March.
to work that fast.
these
Hey.
George is a wonder man.
Have you ever heard of word processing?
This is, you just had to remember to delete, my problem is deleting this stuff. So I think to kind of recap, what we're looking at is the 15th of February is our first public hearing, and that is a true public hearing. And then we have to have a quorum and all that other kind of stuff. So I'll work hard to get as many of our members as possible. Hopefully they're watching on YouTube. A member of our board to be there. George, you'll put together, and if there's any, we talked all affordable housing, but if there's any changes that come out on resource protection on the 15th, and that's got an even faster turnaround because you got to get it in the mail on the 22nd. And then the 28th, And all that has to go in a final draft form to the selectmen on before the 28th, whatever Jerry needs that. And then they vote on it on the 28th, and then on the 16th of March, we will hold, excuse me,
Bless you.
the final public hearing, which is, for lack of a better term, there will be no changes other than,
Right. Again, that is
Grammatical.
just to let people understand what's going to be voted on the, at the town meeting.
Okay, and just something to clarify.
excuse me.
The 15th of February, we're going to meet with the public and vote if there's any changes, or vote on what we propose if no changes, right?
Yep.
And then George is going to work super fast to get any revisions back to the select board.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? They're going to vote on the 28th. We're not going to publish anything final until after they vote on the
The
28th, right? We're not publishing again because we already have
Yes.
the draft,
Yep.
right? Those are already posted.
Well, I
What
think-
we can do is we can publish the changes that are being
I think we need to
recommended.
do that.
Okay.
We can publish the
Before select board,
changes
Okay,
that are being proposed by the planning board to the select board for their,
sure, we
for
can do that.
for their
I
28th
just, I was
meeting.
looking at Kevin's thing and that's what he said.
Yeah, so I think any changes that come out on the 15th,
And again, that is fairly easy to do if you just say, make these changes, and we just say, these are the changes that are recommended. That's pretty quick to do.
Okay, so we do that.
And then it's just a matter of preparing the official documents and getting them posted on the website
and then so that people,
with those changes incorporated.
Mhm.
and then so that people know what the selectmen are going to vote
Mhm.
on the 28th. Good point. And then if whatever they approve to go on the agenda at the town hall gets posted, and then we go over it on the 16th. And people do have the opportunity after the 15th to reach out to their elected officials and say, I don't like that, or.
Yeah, more
Possible.
room for comment, right?
Yeah, so the selectmen, now the selectmen won't make changes, but the selectmen would say, people really don't like changes to the private road. And I don't want to move forward on that. So, I'm sure they will listen to the public comments or whatever it may be. They'll take our recommendations. So the big thing is on the 15th, the 8th, George will get us, so hopefully they'll show up on the 8th, that the affordable housing comments to review from the state. The 15th, we'll meet at 6:30 at Eureka. And if if you know any of these guys, please reach out to them.
For what?
Our planning board guys help push
Oh.
getting them here. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll reach out to, I think I have Ann's, I called Ann, and I should have done that this evening, but I'll call Ann, I've got her number, but I'll start emailing Ron and others
Yeah,
who aren't here, just to make, say, 15th, we need at least one more of you and the more the better, because they give good input.
yeah.
I don't think Alan will be back, so, we'll miss his input, but we can ask him to email. He can email us comments. So the 22nd, George, you're sending the mailing to landowners are impacted by resource protection. 28th, the selectmen will approve or not the final articles. And then we'll meet again on the 16th of March for the final public hearing. And that'll be an informational meeting.
And March 1st will be the review of the Deer Creek, hopefully.
Mhm.
I did include in the packet the draft letter that's going to go out to the landowners affected by resource protection. And basically what I did, I had done an original draft that had gone out, the first proposal. The Conservation Commission edited the letter for the second one. And the only changes I made were explaining the process that happened since the Conservation Commission draft came. So all of the substantive, it's just more the process is being proposed that I added in that letter and attach the final versions of the maps, which includes the map showing land to be added, land to be taken out, 2 separate maps.
And if you would reach out to your contacts in conservation
Mhm.
too.
To tell them about this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
We can just
15th.
respond to Roberta, say, yeah, we'll be there. Hey,
Yeah.
by the way, we've got one too.
That's right. Plan to be busy. So I think we're good. Are there any other questions or a business other than this? I guess we can't do too much business other
No,
than,
you can't.
can't do
No,
any official business.
but I was thinking of saying something. I can't remember. The select board, are they voting on all of the ordinance changes or all warrant articles on the 20? Have they
Well,
been
Yeah,
voting here and there?
no, they'll vote on, because.
Because ours aren't the only ones.
No, the budget articles, the budget committee had its first meeting and voted on some yesterday.
Yeah.
The second meeting is on Thursday. And so if we beat through all that, they'll have, and as you know, anyway, yes, they're gonna vote on all the
They're gonna
budget.
vote on a lot of stuff.
And I don't know that there's any other ordinance changes, like
Yeah,
speeding or anything else that are up before them. So it'll be budget and land use and
Mhm.
then all those other, vote to do this, that, and the other thing. They're
yeah,
kind
the
of
levies. and
boilerplate,
Yeah.
all that boilerplate stuff that they have to do.
the- Mhm.
If any other comments?
No. So next meeting, March.
First
is it-
will be a regular meeting and that will be, we could do land use ordinances, but at that point in time, quite truthfully, it's really going to be more about here's what the selectmen approved, I
Mhm.
think, because we're kind of past,
Mhm.
we're kind of beating a dead horse at that point.
Yeah, we
So
might have Deer Creek.
we might have, hopefully it will be ready to go for a decision. And you haven't gotten any buzz on anybody else that wants to come in and build a 20-story complex or open a grocery store?
Nope.
All right, with that, Devin, you may turn off the machines. And thank you. Thank both of you for coming